Hello, this is Heather Hoffman, and I'm here today to show you another way to use your super long stamps, such as the washi stamps, that might be a little bit too long for your stamp positioner if you don't have the super large size one. I'm going to be using the English Garden stamp set today, and part of this whole suite of products is this beautiful washi tape, the coordinating one-piece die that cuts all of those out at once, and then you also have the stamp set here that will cut out that entire stamped image all in one piece, and the layering stencils that coordinate with that same die. So you can use those with the stamp set. I'm going to kind of show you how to use both of these together with the dies, but also to make it fit in your stamp positioner. I have a regular size MISTI here, and you can see that it is just slightly too long to fit in there. Now, if you don't want to invest in the memory MISTI or anything larger, we do have one tip trick on our YouTube videos that shows how to use it using the outside of your MISTI. You are going to use some good sturdy tape to tape it in place, and then use the outside of the window and your desktop as kind of a reverse swing on that. You can check that out on our YouTube channel. But another way that you can use these, and it sounds really scary, but it's really not as scary as you might think, is you can actually cut these stamp pieces into more than one piece. Now, we kept them all in one piece to leave the option of that one piece super easy way to use them. But you don't have to be afraid to cut them apart. They're really easy, and most of them are designed so there's multiple places that you can choose to make your cut. You don't have to make an exact half, obviously. And I just kind of picked a center point there that I went with, and I'm going to go, you could go around just the wreath, but I'm going to cut down a little lower so that it's a little more equal in the two pieces. And all you're going to do is just very carefully and slowly cut around, making sure you don't slip and cut any of the stamped images. See, easy peasy. And now we have two pieces of the stamp that are easily going to fit in our stamp positioner. And you can just see the different parts. So I'm going to show you how to stencil these in two parts and die cut them. You basically are going to do them really the same way that you would do them as if they were one piece. You're just going to do it in two steps, which is going to give you just more ways. And the other nice thing is, even if you only want to use part of this image, like let's say you only want to ink up that top part and you don't really need the bottom images, or vice versa, then you don't have to do the whole thing. Or you could do them in different colors this way too. So lots of options and possibilities. You can see there I already have the image there. I've used the layering stencils that coordinate with this set. And on this one, I just used the alignment guide. I didn't actually line them up over the stamped image. So this is where you can just cut that in half to match the stamp set that you've cut in half. And then we're going to use our stamp positioner, line up our image over the top on each of the separate pieces, and go ahead and stamp over the top with detail black ink. And it really didn't even take that much longer just to do that in the two pieces. Same thing with the dies. We're just going to line up the top half of the dies on the top portion of that. And then once we run that through and pop those out, then we can take that same die, realign it with the bottom portion, and die cut. So again, you're just doing all of this in two passes, which really doesn't add that much time or effort to the process. And it's an easy way to get these stamps to fit in whatever size stamp positioner that you currently own without having to invest in a larger one or take more time to set up your desk to do the other version. So there we have all of those done and finished. Now, let's say you want to stamp first and then do the stenciling over the top. You can see there I've lined up two panels in my MISTI. This way I can stamp them both at the same time. Now, if you want to stamp with detail black ink, it takes a little while for the ink to dry without smearing when you're ink blending. So one great trick is to use some gray ink. Most of the dye inks, detail black is a hybrid ink, so it takes a little time to dry. You can either heat set it or give it time so it's not going to smear. But if you use a gray ink, all of the dye inks are not going to have that problem. So we like to stamp, leave those stamps lined up in your stamp positioner in the exact same spots. And then I'm going to tape both of these in place, and I'm just going to assembly line, go through doing the stenciling on both of them. I'm not going to try and line them both up at the same time, But it's pretty easy just to quickly switch your stencil between. And I've went ahead and sped this next part up so that you can see the process as I go ahead and ink blend on that top half of the stencil with the first layer. Then I can quickly adjust this, line it up with that stamped image again, and then do the ink blending on this layer. I did find I needed to move them apart a little further so I didn't end up inking up the other side. But I'm just going to move through these stencils and keep adding the layers and the colors, one right after the other. Now I'm also using a microfiber cloth. You notice as I switch, I just quickly like to do that to wipe the excess ink off the top of the stencil just before I put my hands on it and handle it when I'm going to switch and move it over to the next piece of the stencil. Because if I get a little bit on my fingers, it's going to make it harder to not accidentally smudge that on another spot on there that I don't want. I'll clean these really well when I'm all finished with the stenciling. Our favorite way to clean these has been to put some just over-the-counter rubbing alcohol, like you might get from your local drugstore, in a little spray bottle and mist that on and wipe it with a lint-free or microfiber cloth. So I do that at the end when I'm all done stenciling. I generally don't do it in between each layer of the stencils just because it takes a while to pivot back and forth, and I don't want to get the rubbing alcohol on my project either. All right, we are almost finished here. That's the second layer on the roses there. Each of these layers with the stamped, so again, I think I said this, but if you're using the stamped image to line up the stencils, don't just ignore those alignment guides. You don't want to use the alignment guides. You just want to wiggle them around, set them in place, and match them up to that stamped image. I found on some of the additional layers, like on these ones, you'll notice there's some extra flower layers that didn't have color initially. Those are great to use to line up. Same with the leaves. There's always some little one in there that is a first layer, not necessarily a second layer. And as long as you're within the lines of the stamp, it's going to look great no matter what you do. Okay, we have now got both of these stenciled thanks to the magic of speeding up video. So now you can see I have my stamps still lined up in the MISTI. I'm going to make sure and push those in the exact same corner and same place I had them when I initially did it, and stamp over the top. I do stamp a couple times just to make sure I have enough ink on everything and it's well covered. And then same exact process, we're going to die cut each half of these just like we did with the other version. And again, you're still getting several pieces on that die. You're just doing it in the two parts. So now we have both versions of those images, and it's really easy to store the stamp set still, even with it cut apart. I generally just grab the clear top of it and kind of line it up, but I add a little tiny separation in between. You could line them up perfectly if you wanted, but I leave a little room in there just so that it's easier to separate and get whichever half off that I want at the time. And then I can store it still back in my original packaging. All right, once this video finished, I did go ahead and assemble some of these stenciled and stamped pieces just onto some finished cards, adding sentiments from this same stamp set and some die cut and embellishments. I also did want to mention, by cutting these down as well, they also will even fit in a mini MISTI. So that's something to keep in mind when you choose where you want to cut these. Thanks so much for coming by. I hope this gave you some bravery to be brave to do some stamp surgery and have another way to use these stamps, even if they might be a little bit larger than you want to fit in your stamp positioner. There's easily ways to make that work. Thanks so much for stopping by. Have a wonderful day.